Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far in, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question about the video, if you have a suggestion for a video, if you have some constructive criticism, or if you want to tell me how you do things, that's always interesting for me to hear. So let me know in the comments. If you've been to my channel before, you probably know I kind of have developed an affinity for some different art movements. I particularly like Art Deco, which kind of came as a surprise to me. And I have this really pretty green Ethiopian opal, and I've been sitting on it since the last gem show, and I think I found a good design for it. It's similar to one I saw online. The one that I saw online was costume jewelry, I think, but it was beautiful in its own way. It had a turquoise, round turquoise cabochon, and this opal that I have is more of a cabochon that has sort of a trillion shape. It's a rounded triangle. It's about 10 millimeters, and I think it's going to make a great centerpiece for this. I hope it will anyway, because it's a beautiful stone. So we're going to give that a try and see how it goes. This will likely be sort of an intermediate-ish project, I think. With opals, you always need to be a little bit careful when you set the stone, because they're a little bit fragile and sometimes expensive too. So it's always a bummer when you break your opal when you're setting it. So I'll be very careful with this one because I don't have a backup one for it. So before we get started, I'd like to thank some people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I think they're just a marvelous group of people. They've not only helped me financially by signing up for that, they've created a really nice community over there where they can share ideas and show each other what they're working on and ask each other for advice. I know I've learned a lot of things from some of them, and I do appreciate that, as well as the nice community that they've made over there. So thank you for that. My other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we passed 18,500 subscribers, which is awesome. Thank you for that. I love the comments I get from you guys. It's nice to know when I'm helping someone out, because that is ultimately my purpose, is to help people to discover something that they can enjoy as much as I do. And so thanks for letting me know that. I do also appreciate the financial contributions like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. That really helps with materials, so thanks for that. All right, well, let's get started on this Art Deco piece. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. This particular one has a nice chart on the back that has fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters. It's a conversion chart, and I use that all the time, so it's kind of handy. It also has this nice grid pattern in the background that helps you to draw out your designs. I'm not terribly good at sketching out things by hand, so it helps me to have a little grid in the background. And it also allows me to keep a record of what I've made, so I can go back and see how I did it next time. So, but I've filled up, oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these now since I started my channel. Okay, so here's what I have in mind for today. Like I said, I saw a similar one online somewhere, and it looked to be old quality costume jewelry from maybe back in the 30s. But I really liked the design, and this is what the opal looks like. I particularly like Ethiopian opals, and this is the most intense green one I think I've ever seen. It's about 10 millimeters, and it's going to be the central point in this. I pre-made a bail for this. It's kind of a sandwich bail. If you're interested in seeing how I do sandwich bails, this is kind of a modified one, because I did a peak on the top of it like that to give it kind of a match to what's going to happen down here, and we'll see how that looks. But it's not pickled yet, obviously. But there'll be a ring that goes through here to attach it to the top of the pendant, and then the chain will just go through this top part up here. So I think it'll be a good complement to the rest of this piece. I'm going to put a 3/16 inch or 4.76 millimeter tall bezel around this. I may or may not cut it shorter depending upon how it seems like I need to or not, whether it seems like I need to or not. Around the outside, I've taken a piece of 10 gauge square wire and run it through my rolling mill and annealed it, and it's about a millimeter thick probably now, but it's got some height, which I wanted to go alongside of the bezel, so I have plenty of room to attach this other stuff to it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the bezel, put this border on it first. I'll probably use just 26 gauge or 22 gauge for the back sheet behind this, and Opals, sometimes it's hard to tell whether you're going to have it's better with a piece of silver behind it or not. Some of them look better one way, and some of them look better the other way. I forgot to check this one. So that one's with a sheet behind it. That one's with open back. It almost looks better open back, so I may make this open backed. I don't know. I think probably. So I may not do sheet on the back. I may put just a little ridge on the inside made out of 18 gauge round wire or something like that to create a lip for it to sit on. These pieces down here are going to be made out of 18 gauge sheet, so it's going to be pretty thick. So I'm going to cut a piece that's kind of rounded triangle here. This piece here is going to be sort of a, I don't know what you'd call that. It peaks up here, but it also peaks down here. This piece is going to be kind of trapezoidal, I guess, and this piece looks like a tie. And I actually I was playing with seeing how to get that peak in the top, and I did kind of a test drive because I wanted it to have some three-dimensionality to it. And I may use this one, but we'll do another one and see how it turns out. If this one is better than the other one, we'll use this one. If the second one is better than this one, we'll use the second one. So I'll show you how I did that. 18 gauge is 1.02 millimeters. 10 gauge square is 2.59 millimeters, if I remember right. And 22 gauge sheet, which I used for the bail up here, is 0.66 millimeters. I used for these little bars here, I used 14 gauge square wire, and I just kind of plopped it down and then filed the top so it would match that angle there. And 14 gauge square is 1.6 millimeters, if I recall. Let's go ahead and make the bezel first, and then we'll add this border around it. To get these corners like this, we're probably going to have to file a little bit of a notch on the inside corner there to make it bend nicely there, and then we'll solder it closed. But let's make the bezel first. So let me find that bezel. This is 26 gauge bezel, which is 0.41 millimeters. So let's just file that end flat. And seeing as I have kind of corners on here, I'm gonna end it not on a corner but in the middle of a side. So we're gonna try and make some kind of rounded bends here. I think that's just a little bit loose still, so I'm going to mark it. Normally I leave a little bit extra on there. I'm going to mark it right about the same spot, so when I file a little bit away it'll be a little bit tighter. I don't want to get too snug on this one. Let me get those ends lined up. Set him off to the side for the moment. And I think I'm going to use my magnesia block for this. Looks like I need to get a new one pretty soon. This one's getting a little bit kind of cheesed. I just want to make it so that is flat on the top, so I can put a nice piece of solder on there. Now I got to find where I stuck my solder. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use hard silver sheet solder for almost everything. I use a little liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's a acetylene air model, and so it draws in atmospheric air through these little holes to mix with the gas. I use a #1 tip generally, and that's about most of the questions people ask me. If you have others, feel free to leave a comment. Let's spend a few minutes here getting it shaped. pretty good on size. That looks alright. Okay. So now, I think since we're going to do an open back on this one, let me find some 18 gauge round wire and we'll just make a lip on the inside. That's close. Let's cut it a little bit long and we can snip out little pieces until it fits in there perfectly. That's not too shabby. Let's push it down flush. I'm going to make sure it's in a flat plane before you do this. You don't want to have a wavy platform for your stone to sit on. What would people say? They'd say, "Look at Chad's crooked stone." And they would laugh and mock me. Alright, the easiest way to do this is to set a few pieces on the pad here, flux this, move this on top of that, and then just heat the whole thing. It's honestly what's great about silversmithing is there's so many different ways to do things, and everybody kind of finds their own special way of making things work for them. I've learned all sorts of great tips from other people online. I certainly have grown as a silversmith by watching other people and talking to other people. There's a lot of very talented people out there. So, okay, let's file that flat on the bottom. I think we got a good seam all the way around. Okay, now I got to figure out. This thing probably isn't perfectly symmetrical, close, but that seems like a good side to make the top up here. So let's find the center of that and make a little jump ring to go on there. I think I might make it out of 16 gauge round. Oh, you know what? I need to put the border on first. Duh. Okay, let's put this thing on first, and then we'll figure out which side is up. So, same deal with the border here. I'm not going to start on a corner. I'm going to start in the middle of one of these sides, but I need to get one of these ends nice and flat. So I'm going to try doing just a little notch here. That should make it just a little bit easier to bend right there. Get closer to a nice curve. I'm going to cut it off there and file it, and then we'll see how it fits. I think we're kind of within range there, so I think we should solder it together and then we'll force it over there. Still have some solder over here, so I do something called pick soldering, which is where you pick up a little bit of solder on the end of your pick and place it where you want it to go. If you're interested, I have a good video about it up there. It's one of those skills that I think once you've figured it out and mastered it, it opens up a lot of abilities you might not have had prior to that. Make Make sure everything's sitting flat. We'll do the same thing we did before. I may pick a little bit on the corners here where I made those little slots, just to make sure we have a good tight seam all the way around. There you are. Here's a little piece of 16 gauge round. Need a big enough ring to fit through over here, but it doesn't have to be too huge, I don't think. So let's see, make one about this size and see. I think that's going to be a little too small. Maybe this one. Kind of like that. I think what I'll do is I'll solder this on open so that I can just pick solder it closed at the end. This will be the last thing we put on. But we can put the ring onto this piece here right now. Anytime you're soldering things with disparate masses, like this one's got quite a bit more mass than this ring, most of the heat's going to go on the bigger piece because it takes longer for that to get up to the soldering flow temperature. And then they both need to reach that temperature in order for it to really stick well. The little ring is easy enough to melt if you're not careful. It's one of those common things that happens a lot to beginners. Okay, so let's cool that off. It's a little further up than I had intended. I could cut this ring a little bit shorter maybe. We'll see at the end. But now, my next step is going to be making these pieces of sheet here. So I think I'm going to cut out some of these other ones, then we'll show you how to do this. This little bow, or not bow tie, but kind of like necktie looking piece, or sword blade looking piece. And then we'll decide which one of these is better. So and then we'll start soldering them all together. I was going to do it originally in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pieces, but I think it'll be easier if we just overlap them like this, starting with this one, then this one, then this one, and then that one finally. So, but we'll see. It's kind of an experiment, so let's throw this in the pickle for the moment. So I cut out the pieces out of 18 gauge sheet, so it's relatively thick here, and I used a little template that I sketched up based on my drawing for each of these. Pull most of this stuff off of there now. So this one's going to go here. I think I'm going to turn it this way because it's probably got a better one scratched up. It's going to be that like that. Always chucking stuff out of the way and then I can't find it. There it is. Okay, so we're going to solder this on there like that, so it has 2 layers, and then we're going to add another layer and then a 3rd layer. So let's, I think, probably sweat some solder onto the back of this. Yeah. Okay. So we'll pre-melt some solder onto the back of this. I may put a little piece of scrap silver underneath the tip to keep it elevated. These little cutoffs from earlier. If you're new to this, sweat soldering is where you pre-melt some solder in a spot where you want it to be. So it's already in place. In order to get something as thick as 18 gauge to crease like that, I had to use a steel bench block and some clamps. And now, last time I used a C-clamp and this thing, but I think I can get by with just this. Chasing hammer. I'm going to take my chasing hammer and put that end right on that line, hopefully. I could try it this way. Let's try it this way and see if this works. That didn't move that much. So I'm thinking I'm going to go with my first attempt, since that one was a little bit better. Let's see where we're at with that one. kind of like that, I think. So I'm going to make a mark on this thing so I know where I want it to go to about. This down here is just to keep it elevated. It's just a little slab of silver that I had. I'm going to go that route and we'll see how it goes. Alright, let's cool that off and take a peek at it and see how things went. Okay, so this needs to go kind of like that. And I think maybe the best way to do it would be to blacken this with the marker, and then we'll scratch a line through it. So we should be able to kind of see that line. I'm going to cut a little bit inside of it with my saw so I can use the Dremel to kind of clean it up and make sure it's all neat and orderly. Okay, this has got a 00 on my saw, so let's see if we can get it started kind of where I want it. So I need a little bit of more adjustment with my. I'm going to use a white abrasive wheel to kind of shape this a little bit better and get that to drop in tighter, and then we'll be able to solder it in there, I think. And then we'll add the bale and we'll be ready to pickle. So I'm just going to, like I said, I'm going to use a silicone white wheel like this. I'm probably not going to make you watch because it's going to take a while and real careful stuff like that. So let me do that, and then we'll solder it together and we'll be done. So you can see I've got this where it kind of fits right in there. I think I'm just going to try and make sure it's straight. It's getting to be quite a bit of mass here now, so need to pump quite a bit of heat in here. Oops. I think that's actually fine. I could get it perfect, but it's nicely lined up and everything, so I think I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to add this bail next, but I think on the back here, I want it to sit a little bit more down like that. So, and I also don't want this pointy part here, so I may file this down at kind of a slope so it sits a little differently. Let's go ahead and put this bail on here. I did cut this a little bit shorter. Not a huge amount. Let's see how it looks. I think I like that. That's going to be fun. Alright, so let's solder that, and then like I said, I'll file it, and then I'll pickle it, and then we'll come back and set the stone. I think I might use a little bit of easy solder for this last one, just so I don't screw anything up. Somebody asked me if I needed to flux using easy paste solder, and I think this stuff you don't need to generally, but I don't think it would hurt if you did. So. Okay, I'll clean that up and pickle it, and then we'll show you the final product when we come back. Alright, so I got it mostly cleaned up here, and I added an extra ring in here just to raise it up a tiny bit, because I think we're going to need to. And now I do this a little differently than some people. I use the outside edge of my chain nose pliers to be a bezel pusher. Last step is burnishing, and I'm going to use the smooth outer edge of this. Kind of rub that top edge very carefully since I have an opal. So try and neaten it up and flatten it out. Okay, well, that's basically what I wanted. I need to do a little final cleanup on it to get it nice and how I want it, and then we'll be done. So I'll take some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, well, that was the Green Opal Art Deco piece. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I would love it if you take a moment and check out my main channel page. I have 450-ish videos now, and I've been doing 3 per week for about 3 years, so it's built up quite a catalog of content. And there's almost certainly some other stuff you'll enjoy over there. So I'd love it if you'd watch a few videos, like them, sign up to be a subscriber. That way you can always find me easily. So the other thing is, before you go, check out the video description down below. There's some interesting and important links in there. There's a link to my ebook that I just finished for the tutorial guide for 2024. It's got direct access to 170 plus video tutorials, along with some additional annotations and information about the project. So it's a useful tool to have at your fingertips for a whole bunch of projects you can try. There's also a link to my merch store where you can get those nice design idea books that I mentioned at the beginning. Those are super handy and a great way to keep records of what you've made. Finally, there's a link to my Patreon if you want to check out that community over there. As I said, it's a great place and lots of nice people. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Happy silversmithing.